Today, we're going to discuss the Minneapolis shooting and everything that's been happening around ICE. So, city leaders are talking about the 20-year-old United States citizen of Somali descent, identified only as, and forgive me on my pronunciation, Mubashir, who was wrongfully detained by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Engagement agents while he was on his lunch break in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood. According to Mubashir, a masked man ran at him at full speed, tackled him, and forced him into a restaurant without identifying himself as law enforcement. Mubashir said he believed he was being assaulted or kidnapped. He reportedly told the agents he was a U.S. citizen and offered to show his passport. Instead, he was placed in a headlock, forced into a vehicle, and taken to a federal building several miles away. Hours later, after finally being allowed to show his passport, he was released. He asked agents to return him to where he was detained, and he was told no, that he would have to walk back in the snow. At a press conference, Brian O'Hara, the Minneapolis police chief, apologized directly to Mubashir, calling the incident embarrassing for the city. Jacob Frey went further, stating that Mubashir was taken into custody in clear violation of the Constitution for simply walking down the street and looking Somali. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has sent a letter to Kristi Noem demanding a review of recent ICE operations that are happening in the state and warning that unlawful detentions of U.S. citizens will not be tolerated. Dude, the world is going crazy.
I mean, well, we're in the era of authoritarianism as before. Renee Good was murdered by an ICE agent just last week for simply blocking traffic and then trying to flee when ICE tried to open her door. That has really sparked an enormous amount of protest. I think it will be a turning point in the way that the country feels about this administration. And it's unfortunate that things like this have to happen, where it's got to be a tragedy and then people have to, really react and respond. Sometimes for me, when these things happen, the only thing that I can always think about in moments like this, because there was a lot of protests going on this week.
Yeah.
One thing that I did notice is that, again, we weren't out there. I didn't see a lot of us out there because typically when these things happen to Black people, there's not an enormous amount of protest going on. But she was part of the LGBTQ community, a mother of 3, white woman, young, 35, I think, years old. And she was murdered. You can't shoot people because they're trying to flee in a car. It's been stated multiple times that you can't do that. I forget the name of the ICE agents, but the feds have already helped him move and try to get him out of the way, but they're going to prosecute him for what he's doing.
They have to, because even the ridiculous part, Kristi Noem was on CNN last night. J.D. Vance has also said this, that the ICE agent in question had a previous altercation involving a car that might have led to PTSD. So the first question that comes into my mind, why was he allowed in the streets?
Yeah, and it wasn't that long ago.
It was about a year.
Yeah,
about a year.
It wasn't even that long ago. I don't know. Look. This is what people that were talking about, whoever you like, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whatever. This is why elections matter, because when I see these massive protests, and I say it all the time, and I don't say this to sound callous, but voting is the protest. The protest for all of this shit is getting your ass up and go voting. And so I posted about that. Like, I think there's like 83 million Americans that could vote that do not vote, with people that have never registered to vote and people that are registered to vote that don't vote. And so the midterms are this year, and y'all need to get y'all asses out and vote. I mean, anger and fear are the biggest motivators. And I think people are very afraid and very angry in this country. And I hope it spurs this national movement of getting people to vote all these crazy, racist, white supremacist sons of bitches out of office and take the country back in a direction that has some sort of sanity. This man is trying to, we didn't even mention Venezuela.
Oh, man, we didn't even.
And like, so much shit has happened. We didn't even mention this man went down to Venezuela and took the country over.
Man.
Said that it says national security, but then all of a sudden we want their oil. Exxon's running down there to scramble up and grab all their oil and shit. And then you got, what's his stupid ass, what's his name, getting on there saying that it's America's mandate. Stephen Miller getting on CNN saying, it's the right of the Monroe Doctrine gives the United States the right to occupy the Western Hemisphere, including Mexico, Canada, Greenland, Colombia, Venezuela, all that.
Document
That's all right.
made by the United States.
Yeah, it's a colonizer. Whenever I say this all the time, whenever white people hear people of color and black people call them colonizers, this is what we're talking about in real time. He's just saying, who says Greenland has the right to that country? Ain't nobody bothered Greenland, but now you want to come and take it because you just feel like you have the right to take it. The U.S. ain't never had no issues with Venezuela, but now all of a sudden you got to run down there because they have the largest oil reserves in the country and they sell oil to Russia and China. So again, this is what colonizing looks like, what colonizers do. And so it's all part of this whole, crazy regime that y'all need to get your asses out and vote. I hope it spurs everybody to really get out and vote. There are governor's races this year. There's Senate and House seats that are up this year. And it's time to really shift the power narrative because if we don't, it's going to be the younger generation is screwed for their entire lifetime. They've already lost about 10 years because of this, but they'll be screwed for their entire lifetime.
One of the things I love is not love, but one of the things that's been pointed out by the internet is this was predicted.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are fans, one of the ways is if you're a fan of the TV show Jack Ryan and you're into those spy thrillers, they said this years ago, right? That Venezuela was going to be a target by the United States as a result of its oil reserves. Right now, we're talking about also going into Iran again, like just all sorts of craziness. We just pulled out. Barack Obama pulled us out of that whole situation.
Right.
And, I think one of the biggest things with this administration is undoing the work that Barack Obama did. They even took down his presidential photo, if you saw, and labeled him as the most controversial president in human history.
Just racism.
Just plain, blatant racism.
And Greenland people think Greenland is not like Greenland. It's only like 30,000 people that live in Greenland. But the problem with Greenland is if the United States invades Greenland, NATO's out. It means we have no allies. It means any country in the world can now attack the United States of America and no one will help us. And that means attacks will happen on U.S. soil, which hasn't happened since 9/11 and then before that, Pearl Harbor. So we think we as big as bad as we want to, but when you got the Middle East, Russia, China, all at your neck, and then everybody else saying about like, bruh, y'all started this shit, we ain't got nothing to do with it. Y'all think this shit is a game, and you think white supremacy is the way in the move, but it's really not. Y'all need to chill out because you're going to catch an L, and it's going to be ugly.
I want to just point that out, something you just said. Pearl Harbor was the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
That's what got us into World War II. I just thought about this, right? That's 60-plus years, approximately 60 years between us being attacked. 9/11 to now, if Trump goes through with this, that's about approximately a little more than 20 years.
25 years.
Yeah, so think about how that's half of the time span between.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute ridiculous.
And the way that these wars are getting fought now, they're not, these boys got nukes. They're not playing. They don't give a shit. It's really going to be a problem. Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
What do you think about ICE in Minneapolis, especially with Mubashir? Because I saw his press conference. His press conference was really, the part that's really damning about that is you can tell he's a well-raised, well-educated, I don't know if you've seen it, a well-raised, well-educated, just young American, Somali American. His parents had to come pick him up. They wouldn't let him walk home. I mean, they wouldn't take him back to where they kidnapped him from. He had to call his mom and dad to come pick him up. He held an amazing press conference. And these people just running door to door, you know what I'm saying, in Minneapolis, just harassing people of color.
I think this is authoritarianism at its height. I think this is what, and we often talk about white supremacy and how it shows up in the modern day, but this is quite literally what the Nazis did with the Gestapo back in the 40s when they hunting down the Jewish people and other undesirables that Hitler claimed them to be. I love this saying, right? If we don't learn from our past, we're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what it is, and that has come full fold in the fact that book bannings, history being doctored, and people just not knowing. And the crazy part is we have the internet right here. So this is intentional and purposeful.
Who controls the messaging and what you see and what is on here? Because now all these other, these corporations, these tech companies are being taken over. that are aligned with the administration that are censoring stuff. We'll get to that a little bit later. What's really interesting is even what you just said is like we'll go into the Department of Homeland Security actually posted a couple days ago